Propaganda is spreading information to influence public opinion and promoting a particular position. Negative propaganda is biased or misleading, with particular tactics considered most effective. In its modern negative form, especially useful in politics and war, it is a 20th century set of tactics to promote hatred in perceived enemies as us versus them, and then that was adapted to marketing. Propaganda was probably used from the start of civilization or before, giving priests and kings power. The term comes from the Latin propagare, meaning to propagate, then used by the Catholic Church as part of the Reformation to propagate the faith. In other words, it became associated with persuasion using psychology. Edward Bernays was a public relations pioneer who actually wrote the manual conveniently called Propaganda. During World War I, he worked on psychological warfare. One strategy was to promote the concept of the enemy as subhuman, bloodthirsty thugs. After the war, Bernays specialized in public relations focused on marketing. Bernays was a nephew of Sigmund Freud. Bernays was a practitioner of crowd psychology and described people as irrational and subject to herd instinct. He claimed these techniques could be used in public relations, especially with advertising, as they had been used in political campaigns. He was later called the father of spin. Focusing on food, Bernays was part of a campaign to convince the public that bacon and eggs was the true American breakfast. He set up a pancake breakfast for Calvin Coolidge to show he wasn't a robot. He worked with cigarette companies to convince women to smoke instead of eating, then called cigarettes torches for freedom. United Fruit hired Bernays to promote bananas sales. His marketing campaign proclaimed bananas were healthy and placed them in the hands of celebrities. Didn't they go perfect on cereals for a healthy breakfast? His tactics included deception. Of course, propaganda was used in war, including food, typically on the home front to justify domestic food shortages to support the troops. Posters were used for much of this propaganda, focusing on growing food called victory gardens in both world wars. People were supposed to grow their own fruits, vegetables, and herbs, plus help plant in parks and other public lands. It was mainly advertising, starting long before Bernays. There were Victorian trade cards claiming products as wonder drugs, usually pharmaceuticals with drugs like cocaine. Newspaper and magazine ads became widespread. When radio was introduced, speech was added, perhaps with celebrities. Add television, even with a 7-inch black and white screen with a bubble in front, which was my introduction to TV. Think of the TV series Mad Men. Now the internet and streaming. I suppose I need to include YouTube. We'll focus on Coca-Cola and other soft drinks, plus cold cereals. Coca-Cola was created by Atlanta pharmacist John Pemberton in the 1880s as a patent medicine. He sold the syrup recipe to Asa Candler, who soon sold the syrup nationwide, then turned to bottling. It was advertising that made it number one, claiming its medicinal values, then the perfect flavor. Coke even created our current image of Santa. Look at those signs. Dr. Pepper was created in Waco about the same time with the similar story of a pharmacist who didn't benefit financially. Pepsi was created a decade later, claiming to relieve dyspepsia, which is indigestion. John Kellogg ran a health clinic and created cornflakes in the 1890s as a breakfast meal using corn. Kellogg's brother Will started manufacturing them in 1906. Advertising made Kellogg's cornflakes a giant hit, with Cornelius Corny Rooster the most successful ads. Patient C.W. Post developed his own version as Post Toasties. These were highly processed with little nutritional value, but they were sold as if they were needed for a healthy breakfast. Focusing on kids, they sold the cereals at inflated prices, and eventually whole supermarket aisles were packed with hundreds of varieties of cold cereals. Let's get academic. There was a long list of advertising strategies to promote products and services. This means sell, sell, sell. That included all the steps and considering all the marketing channels, determining the target audience, creating a loyalty base, and emphasizing the brand. Included were content, pull advertisements for attracting customers, and push ads promoting product. Email and social media, podcast, customer loyalty programs, even guerrilla ads. Soft drinks and cold cereals were successful uses of advertising to create food mega capitalists, but these are not the only examples of food propaganda. Given all the available ad strategies, where were the other food propaganda successes? Next time on Food History and Mystery.